It's amazing how pictures bring back so many memories.
And quilters are using pictures and memorabilia in their quilts today. And our guest is going to show us how to make a memory quilt.
Let's take a look.
Quilt Central is made possible in part by Bernina of America. Nothing sews like a Bernina. Nothing. Quilting Machines International, providing quilting machines and supplies for the world. Sulky of America, taking creativity to new heights with decorated threads, stabilizers, and books. American Professional Quilting Systems, hand-guided elegance. The American Quilters Society, dedicated to promoting today's quilter. Paducah, McCracken County Convention and Visitors Bureau, Paducah, where no one is a stranger. Additional funding was provided by these companies that care about quilting. Welcome to Quilt Central, celebrating quilting in everyday living, with your hosts, Jane Donaldson and Donna Wilder.
Everywhere I look, quilters are making memory quilts. And my guest today is going to tell you how you can use embroidery stitches to enhance your memory quilt. Joining me is Marlis Bennett. Welcome, Marlis.
Well, I'm glad to be here. This is going to be so much fun. Making a memory quilt can let you incorporate everything that's important in your life into one work of art.
I'm amazed when I look at the camera here to see how the memory quilt you made behind us looks just like a bookshelf.
That was the whole intent of the quilt itself. The idea came out of a book called The Collectable Quilt II by Wendy Etzil. There are lots of different quilts depicted in that book, and I just basically chose one style and then filled the shelves with things that were important in my life.
Well, tell me about some of the things that are in the quilt.
Well, there are books on most of the shelves. There are some books, and then we have pictures, and the pictures are done with a photo transfer method. There are so many out there today that we could do an entire segment on doing photo transfers. You just need to find one that you're comfortable using, because you can either take them to the printer, you can take an original photograph to a copy machine, it'll print onto prepared paper that has fabric on the top, or you can use it on your own printer at home. You can put some of the paper or even the fabric through the printer, and it'll print directly on to that. And they are now much better than they used to be, so that even through washings the pictures do retain.
I've seen some wonderful fabrics that have accepted it, and the color looks just like it did in the photograph.
It does. It's so much fun, and then you can even paint over them and tint them if you want. The first thing I want to show you is how to make the books, because I did the books with an invisible applique stitch. I chose not to use a satin stitch around them, and any machine can really do the invisible applique. On our machine, the invisible applique stitch is stitch number 331, which just is very tiny and very small, already set up for you to go. But I want to show you my method of getting your books to this shape where they're already turned for you so that they're ready to do the invisible applique. I use a water-soluble stabilizer. This is a clear piece of stabilizer. It is a sheet of starch, actually, and it works really, really well for this method, because when you turn it, when you iron it in that step, it actually helps add a little stability around the edges and almost fuses to the fabric itself. But we're going to put that underneath our fabric, and the fabric is going to be right sides down on top of this. Now I have chosen, sometimes I get a little bit lazy, and I will use our 4-directional stitch. Why turn the fabric when you don't have to? Because this machine will sew in 4 directions. I need to select the direction I'm going to sew, and for this it's really sometimes better to have this stitch engaged, because you're moving with the water-soluble stabilizer.
Oh, look at that.
And it just moves the fabric sideways. When you get to a corner, sink your needle, change your direction, and now it's going to come forward.
That isn't clever.
And when we get to the other end, we will turn our direction one more time, move this way, and then continue in the backwards direction, and it will sew all the way up for us. That way I don't have to worry about any of my stabilizer moving out of the way underneath my fabric. Once I have all of this sewn, I then I will cut around my edges. This is really important, and you want to trim your corners too.
Right.
And then you cut your stabilizer about an inch, inch and a half in the center with a very nice sharp pair of scissors. There's the cut. And then you begin to turn this inside out. And turn it through that opening. You don't want to cut too much, and you don't want to cut it away at this point because you won't be able to work your magic. Once you have everything turned, it will look like this, and then you will press it with a warm iron. With the
And the
water
stabilizer stays behind.
Right, it stays behind it, and it has to be down because you don't really want to put that on your iron. But you can see in this shot how it has helped turn the fabric for you. Now, at this point, when it's already been pressed, I will then come in and trim away my excess stabilizer because as I said, this is pure starch, and I want to leave in as little as possible, but I'm still leaving in enough around the edges to hold everything in place.
Okay.
And then I would just put it onto my fabric, and you start with your shelves. It's overwhelming to look at that quilt and think, where do I start? Well, you start with one shelf at a time. And once you have the shelves done, or decide how large you want your shelves, then you will go ahead and place your books on it. And I use the monofilament thread and stitch them down with the invisible applique. You can even use wonderful ribbons at this point to make books, and that is really an easy thing to do because your sides are already finished.
Perfect.
Cut it to your desired length, cut your ribbon to the desired length, turn over the top and stitch in place, and then you can place it onto your bookshelf because now you're going to start embellishing your shelves with some of the different techniques that are on the quilt.
Now, when you did the writing on the backs of the books, did you do that directly on this?
I did a lot of my writing directly on this. I used machine stitches because most machines will speak in any language you want them to. There's no spell check in there, and I am of German descent, so a lot of my books on my quilt, the spines are written in German, and I chose one of the 5 different alphabets that are on my machine, and that way each one looks a little bit different.
Yes.
And some of them I went into the embroidery software that you can use with the embroidery module and spelled out things that way. The heavier ones that you see on the quilt are done that way. If you're going to use your stitches on your machine, I like to put in a 30-weight cotton thread because it's a little bit heavier.
And stands out
nicely. It stands out much more. What you see behind on that quilt, you'll see a lot of embroidery. The little doily on top of the book, that is an embroidered piece. If you didn't have an embroidery machine, you could use a piece of doily that you already have, that somebody may have made for you. And I've scattered pictures all around it. I even have one little piece on there, if we can close in. You see the little quilt that's there?
That's so cute.
That is done on the embroidery machine. It's all red work, and I was able to rescale those embroidery designs to a size that I wanted to use. So I'm not limited in size. I can make them as small as I need to have them. And these are rescaled to 50% of their original size. And then I can change that mini quilt out for all the different seasons.
Now, the basket that you did of the flowers there is so beautiful.
That basket now that's the only thing embroidered directly on the quilt itself.
Oh, okay.
The rest of them were done as dimensional, and that way I could move them into position as I wanted. That design came off of one of the embroidery cards. It is a large basket. I enlarged it as large as it would go. I stitched on there, I added buttons. It's so much fun once you have the embroidery to add things to it. If you notice very closely, there are little fuzzy things coming out of some of the flowers. That was done with the sewing machine to further enhance the embroidery that's on that basket.
Now, when you do something like this, is everything stationary, or do you make like the little quilt, can you change that and put other pieces in there?
The little quilt, I made sure that I could change that out because this is a major part of my home decoration, and I love to decorate, so come Christmas time it has a little one, and I have another version done right here. This is a silk screen print with embroideries over it. and then lots of little tiny machine stitches around some of the decorative work that's already on the silk screen print. It was finished off with the bias binder, the mechanical device that covers your edges, so
That is
it
so
was very
pretty.
quick to do.
Well, again, you've had some good ideas, and I know it's so popular right now, all the scrapbooking and memory quilts, that you've given our viewers a wonderful group of ideas. Thank you.
Automation. I have always been intrigued with the automated quilting machines, and today I have with me Paul Statler, who was the originator of the concept for automating a machine. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Janie.
I'm so glad to have you here today to show us what this machine can do. I know that it can do things that we can't freehand because of the perfection in it.
That's correct.
It is hooked to a computer, and it thinks in such precision increments that, for instance, the circle, which is real hard for a quilter to freehand, can be done so simply and so easy with this. So I wondered if you could show our viewers a little of this.
Maybe I'd like to explain partly how we do that.
That would be good.
We have motors that are controlled by the computer that moves a machine back and forth this way, and also synchronize the stitching motor is also computer controlled, so their stitches are all perfect.
So it works with pulleys
and pulleys and belts that are attached to the track. This can be attached to any brand machine.
Any brand. Oh, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. Let me show you. Okay, we just push the start button, and it tacks off, and then starts sewing. I picked a circle to do today because circles are very difficult to sew when you're hand guiding.
Yes.
This just does it perfect.
We used to avoid them because we knew we couldn't get them perfect.
It's kind of interesting how this sews that pattern. And when I was drawing this pattern, I just basically drew in that direction. It runs like a continuous line because the thread's continuous. If you did a complete circle, then you couldn't get off to the next one.
Yeah, we could never get it that good. We could never have those lines meet so perfectly, I don't think.
This machine divides each inch into 800 divisions, so it's very accurate.
Incredible. Look at that.
See, it tacks off when it finishes, so it doesn't ravel out.
Just perfect. There are so many different things that I have seen these machines do when they're automated, because you have a program that you can put in your own creation, don't you?
Yes, you can. You can draw on a drawing program. You can use most drawing programs, and then this converts it to a run for a pattern. Basically, when you draw a continuous line because the thread is continuous.
I've heard that you can draw with the machine also, and it'll memorize what you draw.
Yes, you can. If you want to draw something special on a piece of paper, you can lay it off to the side and put the laser light on it, and then follow that, and you memorize it that way.
Well, could we see a little bit more of something like this?
Yes. We'll change the pattern by just going back to the screen. There we push the start button. Again, we're doing circles as an individual circle. You can set the offset by changing a number over here and how far you want it offset. You can put teddy bears here, and another one over here, and another one separated if you want.
Oh. That would be great. You get kind of an illusion when you overlap different designs.
Yes. Of course, this will do like your feather patterns and all, beautiful detail and perfection on your feathers and hearts and whatever you want.
That is just wonderful, and what a wonderful piece of equipment to have. Thank you so much, Paul, for showing us this today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Continuing along with our memory quilt theme, you might think we're going fishing today. We're going to be making a lovely little wall hanging and showing you other ideas for photo transfer onto your quilts and accessories. Joining me is Joyce Drexler, who is with Sulky. Welcome, Joyce.
It's great to be with you again, and I'm real excited about this particular project because it's something that you can do for a man.
I know. You know, we always think of quilting, and it's always sort of the women are doing the quilting, and it's nice to be able to make something for the men in our lives.
So in the book, we have this full-size patterns of all the appliques that you see on the quilt here.
I'm going to hold this up because I know it's kind of
it's now
falling back.
Patty Lee made this quilt out of flannel. It's all flannel for her fiance, who's a fisherman. And he's pictured right there. That's Kenny. But we did get Kenny to make the lures for us out of our cotton thread, and
those look pretty good. They look very real.
Well, he learned how to do fly fishing this year, so he really does know how to tie them. But the recipe is his way of cooking trout. He's a chef. And that was all done with our heavyweight 12-weight thread that we have here.
Back?
Now we have it a lighter weight, which is this one, and you can see that it's much lighter. And the other cotton is a 12-weight. It's heavy.
And it stands out really nicely when you do that.
When Patty did that stitching by hand for the recipe, she used 2 strands of the heavy 12-weight in the needle.
Great.
So it's a good replacement for floss. If you don't have it, you've got your quilting thread right here. Might as well use that.
Good. Well, how did you do this whole project then? I mean, are these all of these are the pattern pieces?
These are all the pattern pieces, and what we like to do is, since they're tissue paper, we iron them onto an iron-on stabilizer. And you might want to use a press cloth when you do that, so it doesn't stick to your iron.
Good idea.
But that allows you to get that pattern all fixed up.
Great. And all those patterns are in the back of the book in a little envelope there. Is that correct?
That's right.
Great.
Full size. Now, to get the little picture that we took, I took that picture.
Oh, you did? That's pretty good.
What we're using are washable color fast printer fabric sheets. These actually have a coating on one side, and it's like fabric on the other side. And when you put this into your copier, your color copier, you put it so the fabric side will be the side that the picture will be on. And you just let it feed through, and it comes out like this.
It's amazing how, you know, the technology is taken to us to being able to print on fabric.
And then all we do is take away the plastic coating, and because you want to wash this when you're done to set the ink.
Oh, okay.
But you don't want to use any detergent.
Alrighty. And do you do that in the washing machine or just by hand?
Whatever way you want to do it.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, I also wanted to point out that Patty did a little
sort of an album
photo cover. Yeah. And again, she used the pretty Holoshimmer-like thread to do her blanket stitch around this. And this project is also in the book on how to do book covers.
Good.
The quilt that's on the wall was done by Carol Ingram for her her grandson, Logan Albritton. And I just love this idea because she has taken all these pictures of him as he's gone through Little League and pictured them on his quilt. Now, I had a hard time getting this quilt here because Logan didn't want to let me take it. He sleeps with it every night, you know. So you can see that doing things for the men in your life can have a lot of rewards. And I think that it's just fabulous that we're able to keep this history, you know, on these photo fabrics.
And I made one for my mother when a couple years ago, and she puts it right in the center of her entryway. You know, I mean, this is the first thing she wants people to see. What I think really makes this look attractive are some of the, you've done some decorative stitching on this as well.
Yes, I wanted to point out that Patty did the applique with a blanket stitch.
That looks nice.
And using batik fabrics and some flannel fabric, she kind of mixed it together. And we found a fabric that looked like wood to make the frames out of. And then the stitching was done on a long-arm quilting machine.
Oh, it was?
Yes, using the new cotton thread.
Oh, it's great.
And I believe most of it was quilted with the heavier 12 weight. Yeah.
Well, it's nice because it really makes it stand out
now,
and look good.
We also, when we're quilting like that, before we do the quilting in the areas around the pictures, we stabilize it by quilting in the ditch with the invisible polyester.
That's a good little tip.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. You brought some wonderful ideas, and I love the idea of doing something for the men in our lives.
I do too.
The William Clark Market House Museum is a monument to the rich history of Paducah and Western Kentucky.
The William Clark Market House Museum was founded in June 1968 with two purposes in mind. These were purposes of education and preservation. And the museum has an exhibit space of about 5,000 square feet. We have artifacts in various categories. We have a lot of Indian artifacts from a 3-county area surrounding Paducah, including baskets, arrowheads, even sculptures that the Indians did from rocks. We also have a lot of Civil War artifacts. We have a wonderful Civil War room upstairs, some of which you see behind me. We have bone china, we have cut glass, we have Paducah's very first motorized fire truck, a 1913 LaFrance that's chain-driven. One of the most precious relics we have at the Market House Museum is a quilt made by Mrs. Robert E. Lee, wife of the famous general. The quilt was actually made as a wedding gift to a son of Judge Brockenborough. Brockenborough was a dear friend of the family. The Market House Museum has one-of-a-kind artifacts. These are things that you'll not see anywhere else in the United States. One of these artifacts would be the William Clark wedding vase, and this is an exhibit that we have that's on the first floor. It's a beautiful, beautiful vase. It's known as an old Paris porcelain vase. This is a soft paste porcelain that was fired at a very low heat, and the color stayed very vivid. Some people think that the vase is a little bit gaudy, but actually it's a really, really beautiful work of art. This vase was given to the founder of our town, William Clark, by the Marquis de Lafayette, who'd been best friends with George Washington during the American Revolution.
In 1877, the DuBois and Robertson Wholesale Drug Company was built on Broadway in downtown Paducah. The interior was exquisitely hand-turned oak cabinetry and spindlework. Stained glass windows graced the front of the building. It remained a drugstore until the late 1960s, after 2 generations of the List family practiced the pharmaceutical trade there. The granddaughter of the original proprietor still owned the building. In the interest of preserving an architectural and historical gem, she donated the entire 2-story gingerbread interior woodwork to the Market House Museum. It was moved piece by piece and painstakingly reassembled to fit into the present building. The Market House Museum exists to serve the dual purpose of education and preservation of the history of the Western Kentucky region.
You ever get one of those strange little tangles of thread on the back of your work and you wonder where they come from? Sometimes it's when you start up, sometimes it's when you end, and sometimes it's right just one little loop at the end of the point of like a leaf. Well, we can help you with that. Sometimes it occurs because the bobbin, when it's in the case and it's spinning along, it spins so fast that when you come to a stop, it keeps on spinning, and we call that coasting. Then inside these bobbin cases, you will see that there's a little metal piece, and it is called a back-lash spring. And you can put those inside. Now here's one that's a football shape, they call that, and this one is a star, and this is for a smaller one, because you might have the size M bobbin case, or you might have a smaller one called the L. These are pre-wound bobbins here, and you can see that that's the smaller one and this is the larger one. That'll help you to distinguish what you have at home. The other thing is your bobbin case may have become a little bit egg-shaped. So to straighten it, especially for the quilters that have their quilting machines on their basement floors and they work on cement, if they drop it, they could get them a little out of shape. So the straightener goes in, you can spin it, you can tap on it a little to get it back in shape. And here's for the larger one. There's also a class M. This might help your situation also. So if this looks like something that might work for you, give it a try.
Thanks for watching this episode of Quilt Central number 203, Make It More Than a Memory. Join us next time for Tween Teen Theme, quilting for the teens in our lives. Quilt around the clock. Visit the Quilt Central website at www.quiltcentraltv.com for more information on this program. Central is made possible in part by Bernina of America. Nothing sews like a Bernina. Nothing. Quilting Machines International, providing quilting machines and supplies for the world. Sulky of America, taking creativity to new heights with decorated threads, stabilizers, and books. American Professional Quilting Systems, hand-guided elegance. The American Quilters Society, dedicated to promoting today's quilter. Paducah, McCracken County Convention and Visitors Bureau, Paducah, where no one is a stranger. Additional funding was provided by these companies that care about quilting. Celebrate quilting in your everyday living. To purchase videotapes of this or any episode of Quilt Central, you may call 1-866-PADUCAH.